Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. So on Sunday, in a Super Bowl that felt a little light on new trailers to me honestly, Marvel dropped an ad for 3 upcoming Disney Plus shows: Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. And honestly, if I just heard who the lead characters were in all 3 shows, WandaVision wouldn't exactly be at the top of my list of the most anticipated. Like many out there, I'm a big fan of Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and I think that a show starring him in some kind of galaxy-trotting series of adventures has a ton of potential. He's definitely a character you could build a long-running show around. Scarlet Witch and Vision though, it seemed a little farther from a sure bet. It's not that I dislike the characters or the actors. I think that Vision had maybe the single best scene in all of Age of Ultron, and I bet you know which one I'm talking about. Scarlet Witch I've never thought was well used. Her and Quicksilver didn't quite land for me in Ultron, and outside of a good scene here or there, I don't think she's ever had the opportunity to be a true standout in an Avengers film. But Elizabeth Olsen, who plays her, is a different story. She gave a really great dramatic performance in 2011's Martha Marcy May Marlene, about a woman trying to escape a cult, as well as showing that she can pull off a lighter performance in her turn as the Instagram influencer that Aubrey Plaza is obsessed with in the indie film Ingrid Goes West. There's no shortage of talent here, but when the show was announced, I just wasn't that interested. But the more we've heard about WandaVision, the more I've had to really take notice of it, because more than any of the others, it seems to be the one that's embracing something totally unexpected. And in the aging Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's hard to overstate how important that is. So in this video, I want to talk about the show and what I hope it can do, and why it might be my most anticipated upcoming MCU project currently announced.
No, I wouldn't lie to you. Of course I'm home in bed. I wouldn't even look at another girl.
The Super Bowl ad didn't show much, but what it did show, along with what we already knew, paints a pretty interesting picture of what WandaVision could be. So let's talk about sitcoms. It's pretty clear that at least a good portion of the show is gonna take place inside of an altered reality, one that resembles a few different old shows. Whether it's the villain Nightmare or something Scarlet Witch is maybe by accident causing herself, I'm gonna take a leap here and guess that they're trapped inside of this sitcom dimension. One small thing I'm really excited about is how it seems to be shifting between different eras of sitcoms. What starts in a very 50s Donna Reed show aesthetic quickly shifts into a 70s All in the Family type look, and finally what seems to be a kind of late 80s type sitcom, Full House, a show that Elizabeth Olsen's older sisters actually starred in. And then it jumps forward again to something that looks more like the original 90s Roseanne. So sure, that's a fun gimmick. Right there you've got something that feels a little different than most MCU offerings, something that, like many have already noted, really feels inspired by Tom King's run on Vision. That's all the basic stuff that everyone's been talking about, but honestly, I'm less interested in who the bad guy is or how it connects to the Doctor Strange sequel than I am about the tone of the show itself, because I think it's there that WandaVision could really carve out its own unique identity that feels nothing like the rest of the MCU, and I think that might be the best outcome. I really hope the show is surreal, and not in a way that's just played for cheap laughs. It's really easy to parody old sitcoms, people have been doing it for decades, and there's some fun to be had there, definitely, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's what this show will live or die by. What they really need is to nail the core emotional, character-based story that they're telling in the middle of it all. Get weird and go in on sitcoms, sure, but I think it'll only work if the story they're telling about Wanda and Vision is more than a gimmick. It needs to stand on its own as a great emotional arc for them. Something that these two have never really had enough of in the movies just because they've been such side characters. Maybe this will be controversial, I have no idea, but I'd be okay with most, if not all of the episodes of this show not really having a villain. At least not one that the leads can just get into a physical brawl with. After years and years of the MCU, I'd like to see them try other styles of storytelling. There's also the fact that this is a TV show, and as such it doesn't have to follow the 3-act structure that the movies have been so intent on maintaining. They don't have to do a big battle at the end, crammed with CG if they don't want to, and I hope the show really uses that to its advantage.
My resume, right?
Last guy I show it to reads it, laughs in my face.
Why would he do something like that?
The MCU gets accused of being too samey, which I think tends to be overstated. Something like Guardians of the Galaxy and, say, Captain America, the First Avengers feel very different to me. But one thing I have a harder time denying is that they're usually structured in a very similar way, with your comic book villain being dispatched at the end of every film. These Disney Plus shows don't have to go down that exact same road, and while it seems very likely that a show like Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably will, I feel like WandaVision has the most chance to do something pretty weird and radical. I would love to see the show really try to play with the tools of a sitcom. Obviously it'll probably do it in a very tongue-in-cheek way, but it would still be great to see it really commit. Maybe having certain scenes or even entire episodes filmed in the old 4:3 aspect ratio. Instead of just using it for a few laughs, use it to really play with the television medium. If the knock on Marvel Studios is that they're too white bread and vanilla, I think it would be really cool to see one of their first TV shows be so out there and experimental. I'd love to see them really try to get all the period detail right too, with each era of sitcoms getting very specific in the differences between them. And from what I can tell from this ad, I think they're off to a great start with that. This is really random, but I love little details like the staircase behind pregnant Wanda in the shots from the 70s show that really fit the era of TV perfectly, getting specific with the Brady Bunch style set dressing. And as someone who's way too invested in the history of TV, I'm looking forward to seeing more stuff like that. I think there's quite a bit of potential to be a little darker than we might expect too. I mean, underneath the goofy sitcom setting, it looks like it's a story about two people trapped against their will. There's a great episode of the Buffy spinoff Angel, where Angel's enemy Lindsay finds himself in a hell dimension designed to resemble a suburb, living every day in this fake, idealized life, not too dissimilar from like The Truman Show. One of the elements of that episode that I found interesting was that Lindsay actually had a kid inside the dimension, a son he thought was his own. And I've always thought it was a big missed opportunity that they didn't really dig into the impact that would have on him more. This is a concept that I think WandaVision could really go in on. It seems like they're living in this strange sitcom world, but their children and the powers they have are probably real. And if they're not, that could be even more creepy and interesting. Remember Cypher in the first Matrix, and the way he wanted to stay inside the fake reality because it was so preferable to his real one? I'm kind of fascinated by that idea. Like, would Wanda and Vision prefer this life to their real one after a little while? Is that even a question the show is interested in asking? I have no idea, but just the fact that these possibilities exist have me pretty excited, and the fact that there will be multiple episodes to really dig into questions like that makes me hopeful that there's a good reason to tell this story on TV instead of in a film. If these Disney Plus shows are to succeed, I think they really need to establish themselves outside of the shadow of the films. One of the problems that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had, especially early on, was the constant need to assure you that it mattered to the movies, that it wasn't just kind of a tacked on continuity, when it clearly kind of was. I think what these shows need to prove right out of the gate is confident storytelling that makes you stand up and pay attention. Not because it might pay off in Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange movie down the line or something, but because the story they're telling is compelling and could totally stand on its own if it needed to. And from what we've seen so far, I think WandaVision has the most potential to do just that. It's kind of hard to believe that the MCU started over 10 years ago, and a lot has changed in that time, especially online. And if you're anything like me and you want to try to hack it by making a living on the internet, you have to keep up with a pretty weird and shifting online landscape. So I highly recommend going freelance, building and branding your own success. This is a really popular class on Skillshare right now, and for good reason, as it effectively breaks down what you need to know when trying to get into YouTube or even pitching traditional media outlets. So check it out on Skillshare. The first 500 people to click on the link in the pinned comment below get 2 months of classes on pretty much any subject, from photography to art, business, and a lot more, absolutely free. Plus, an annual subscription is less than $10 a month. So get started and go to skl.sh/captainmidnight27. That's skl.sh/captainmidnight27.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes.